doing here, Jim?
Well, I've got a Forstner bit chucked up here, and I'm clearing out some of the wood here where we're going to route a control cavity here in a minute. And, you know, we want to try to take out as much material as we can. Saves the router, eliminates the possibility for more tear out, things like that with the router. So,
what's the next step, Jim?
Next step, John, we've got a template that we put on here.
Okay.
Nice little MDF template that we made for the control cavity. Got that stuck down with some nice heavy duty carpet tape, double stick. And got our router set up with a 1/2 by 1/2 flush cut router bit. Now the key to this is making sure that that bearing is riding right on this nice smooth template.
Right, and for those who don't know what a bearing is, it's that, right. There we go.
Yeah, and the key here is, you know, don't try to take too much at once. Just go nice and easy with it. Make sure you got your eyes and ears on.
Cool.
And you can see there we've only gone, you know, a short distance into the cavity. We're not going to try to do a full depth. We're going to do it in just a few passes and it'll be nice and clean.
Sweet.
Now that I've got the cavity shape established, I can remove the template and we'll just follow that nice clean area with the bearing that we just created. Let's go ahead and readjust this and we'll go to our final depth. We didn't go quite as deep with the Forstner bit as we could have, and I want to get a little more depth out of this. I also want to take the little brad point marks. If you notice those, you got the little circular marks and then the center points. I want to take all that out. I want it to look like a really nice clean cavity. So what I'm going to do on this last pass is I'm going to have to float it in. So that can be a little tricky when you have a rotary tool. So let me show you how to do it.
All right.
And there you are, Mr. Lippy.
That is pretty. Hey man, what happened with that?
I don't know, man. It was wet. I put it in the drying room. Got the wrong one in my hands.
Yeah, that's the wrong one. That was the model.
That was the prototype.
The real one's got to be at least 3 times that big.
So we got a nut fit to our nut slot here. We've got it sticking out the appropriate height. And now we just got to really mark off where our strings are going to go and make some notches for them.
All right.
First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to measure in from either side of the nut 1/8 of an inch and just make myself a little mark there.
And that measurement's pretty typical on a lot of string instruments.
Very
right?
typical.
1/8 of an inch. And then those would be your two, your high and low strings.
Yeah, my high and low strings. If you have them any closer than that out in the nut, what's going to end up happening is your high and low strings are going to be too close to the edge of your fingerboard. Now, it's not going to matter so much on a lap steel because you're using a tone bar and actually not fretting the instrument. But on a fretted instrument, it's pretty important that you keep these in off the edge of the fingerboard about 1/8 of an inch.
Okay.
Then we take this handy dandy string spacing rule and we just go through here and line it up until we get 6 even marks. I can tell I'm on the wide side. We're getting there.
If you didn't have that ruler, you'd have to do some fancy math.
Just do a little bit of math. And we've got 6 evenly spaced strings. What I like to do is start off with a razor saw. Razor saw's got about a 10/1000 kerf on it. We're going to be using larger gauge strings on a lap steel than on a typical guitar anyway. So this is going to still be much smaller than even our high E string on the lap steel. But I like to get the grooves established with this. Once you do that and everything's spaced well, then you can move forward with your nut files and fit them properly. Now, I could just do this in the instrument, although a little vise comes in handy, a little more weight. Okay, so then once you've got all the nut slots established with the razor saw, come back in with the appropriate nut slotting file. And what this is going to do is open these up to the right width. So this one I'm using is a 13/1000. Typically I string up my lap steels with a 14 or a 15. So if you have that, you might find that finding the exact nut files that you need for a larger gauge string set's a little bit difficult, but they're out there. So you want to go through and basically at this point we're making these placeholders, we're making them fit the strings. But in the long run here, when we finish the nut out, we kind of want to have the strings on this thing. We'll put them on the bridge. We want to make sure we've got a nice flat surface, a nice flat plane to those strings. Because unlike a traditional guitar, as you probably noticed, this nut is straight across the top. There's no radius in it. Likewise, there's no radius in the fingerboard because on a lap steel, fingerboard is just basically a placeholder for your frets. Use a tone bar, and so as you can imagine, if we had any radius to these, it might be a little difficult to use a tone bar and slide. So basically, start off with a billet of wood like this. We typically use alder for this. It's an affordable wood, sounds good. But this is it, first day of class, this is what you start with. And the lap steel ends up being kind of a quicker project than most instrument builds, I think, due to the fact you don't have any frets to put in, you don't have a neck to carve, so you can get a little creative with it, you know. It's something that you come up with a concept, we give you the board, and we'll teach you all the little ins and outs of the lap steel, and you know, in 2 weekends you come up with something that's playable, ready to finish. The next thing we'll do with this one, John, is we'll get your pickup routed. We'll get the electronics laid out, do a little soldering. Very simple, one tone, one volume. And my preferred pickup is the Lawler Chicago Steel, which I think we still have in stock. But yeah, it's a fun little project to do. Once you know how to do it, it's not as time consuming as other instruments. And you know, the class is open to the public, so it's always nice to get people from around Phoenix to come in and build a lap steel.
And what I noticed as a former student is that it kind of gives you a little bit of some similar experience in certain things, like cutting the nut and getting the tuner holes all set up and the control cavity. It's almost like practice for more intricate version of those things.
It is, and it's definitely a great project to hone your woodworking skills before you start doing a carved top Les Paul. This might be where you want to start.
Right. All right. Thanks a lot for showing me all that, Jim.
Yeah, no problem, John.